Okay, so before class, I asked you to write a simple function. So task is write a function which accepts a list and returns the first item of the list. Okay, so that was my request, and I even gave you the recipe. How do you define the function? def. You have to give a name for the function, right? And I think first is a good name for the function. And you have to supply what kind of parameters it will receive, okay? Arguments it will receive, okay? So the input will be some L, where I'm assuming that L is a list. And whenever you define, you need a colon, enter, and it will give you automatically 4 spaces to indent. And a function will usually do something and then return the processed something. But in here, there's already something to a way to get the first item in the list, right? So let's see, return. A function will receive something, do something with it, and return something. How do you return the very first item?
0.
All right, good. All right. So if I run this, nothing happens because all it did was define a function. So let's say L is a 3, 4, 1, 2. That's a list. And if I ask what's the first item in the list, it'll say 0. Well, of course, you asked it to return 0, so it's just going to return 0. But that's not what I want it to return. It should be what? Instead? Huh?
1.
No, then if you do 1, it's going to return 1. You have to do something with what you received. This is the list that you want to use, right? So what should I put here? Huh? L? Well, if you do that, what's going to happen? It'll just return the entire list, right? So if I do first of L, it just returns the entire list. Huh?
0 L or 1 L.
How do you reference the first element of L? We learned how to do that. Yeah?
Bracket.
You need the brackets. Yes, you need L bracket, and what do you put here? 0. Okay. So if you run it, and then you ask, what's the first item in L? It says 3. Okay, so we built this function. Okay. So I think last time I introduced a simple example of a function, but didn't really explain what the function does or how to define it. So you have to give a name for the function, but this thing in here could be named anything. You could have named this as x, and in that case, you should also return x of 0. And this function will do the exact same thing as what we just did. Okay? And the rule is that you want to reference what you received. You got that? Okay. Now let's do another exercise. It takes too long to write it, so let me just say in words what the task is. Write a function where it replaces the very first item as 0. So it receives a list, and the very first item in the list is now replaced by 0. So I want to say define first 0 of x, and I want it to do something here. What command should I do?
Can you repeat the question?
You take in a list, replace the very first item as 0. You reassign the very first item of the list as 0.
So
How would you?
replace?
No, there is no replace command, unfortunately. In fact, instead, there's an assignment operator in Python. What is that? What's an assignment operator in Python? equal sign, right? So you want to say x of 0, you assign it as what? 0. What if I want to replace the very first one by 7? How would you change this? Yes?
X of 0 equals 7.
Yes, that's how you would do it, right? X of 0 equal to 7. All right, so here is now a new function. First 7 of L. Nothing happened because this thing didn't return anything. So if you compare this with the previous function, I should haven't erased the previous function. It was first of x, and then you return x of 0. So if you compare these two functions, this function returns something back to you, whereas this one does not return anything. So that's why nothing happens here. But if you look at L, what happened? Remember, this was our L. What happened to the L?
First number changed to 7.
To 7, right? Yeah, the first number changed to 7, right? Okay. Now, what if I do first 7? So, let's see. If I say I equals to hello, and then if I do first 7 I. Now then, this will cause an error. Why do you think this will cause an error? First, what would this function try to do? It will receive the I, right? And if it did execute correctly, what's going to happen? The very first H is going to be 7, right? But instead, it's going to give you an error. Why is that? Because it's a string. Because strings are immutable. Very good, yeah. Strings are... So it says string object does not support item assignment. So that's a problem. Okay. So now let me try to do another one. So I'll do str first 7 of x. Okay, and here's a slightly different approach. What I'll try to do is I'll just take the letter 7 and attach it to the rest of the string. So I'll take x and 1 and afterwards, which means this will be a slice of the string where the first letter is dropped. Okay, it starts at the second letter and takes the rest of them. Okay. So if you do this, and let's just for good measure, let's print the x and see what happens. Right? So let's run this one. So string first 7 of I. And when you run this, I goes into this x, right? And I is now 7 plus I of 1 and afterwards. So very first letter will be changed to 7, right? So as you can see, the very first letter is now, instead of H, you have 7. However, if you look at what I was, it's still hello. It didn't change. On the other hand, remember that we applied this to list L, right? In list L, when we executed, it didn't do anything, but the list itself changed. Okay. And this is another incarnation of the principle that strings are immutable and lists are mutable. What happens is that when L is passed to this function, what's really passed to this function is the location in the memory that this list resides. Okay. In C++ language, it's called pointers. If you ever learned C++, so it's not the list itself; it's the pointer to the data. And because you're manipulating that location, it's going to that memory location and replacing the very first item. The list itself has changed. On the other hand, when you take a string and send it to a function, because functions, strings are not how do you say it? It's immutable, right? It doesn't send the string itself. It takes a copy of the string and sends it. So that's the difference. Okay. All right. So that was a bit of a review of last time, and I've shown you these three types of functions. Now, what you have to remember is that for functions, there are two types, or maybe there could be a mix of the two, but there are functions. There are two types of functions. One is where it returns something it processed, or another is it will just do something in place and not return anything. Okay, it will either do some actions like printing or make something happen, but not really change the data that it received or return anything. So this doesn't return change any data. It just prints something. It doesn't return anything. This one changes the data. It doesn't do anything else than changing the data. It doesn't return anything. This one returns something. I just want to, I need to show you just one more thing. What if I do, for example, A equals to first 7 of L? Well, it didn't give me an error, although first 7 doesn't return anything, right? But because first 7 just takes this list and changes the very first element to something else, it doesn't return anything, therefore A doesn't get anything. So if you ask what A is, it says nothing. And if you look at the type of A, it says it's a non-type. Okay, and Python has a non-type. You can say A equals to none. It says true. Okay, whereas I is not none. It's because I is hello, right? It's not none. But in Python, there's a non-type. If you make a variable but nothing gets stored in there, then it becomes a non-type. All right, so now let me talk about loops today. Loops are like the major hurdle to everyone who learns to program. It seems like this is the hardest concept to learn, but once you learn loops, everything else follows. It becomes easier. So let me talk about loops. There are two types of loops that people use. There's a while loop, and there's a for loop. Okay. So let me show you the following. I'll make an app, grocery app. So what you have is an empty list, and we'll just keep adding to the list. So while true, we're going to get a grocery item. So input grocery item, colon, right? And then, well, we just append that to the list, right? L.append A, and then later we print the list. That's a simple idea, but this is not going to be good because what this while true does is while statement just repeats whatever that's inside. So this is the while block because it's indented. This while block will be repeated forever because I said while true. A lot of times you might have a condition here, and as long as that condition is met, this will just continue to run. And since true is always true, it means that this will go on forever. So you have to know how to break out of a while true loop. And let's stick that in somewhere. So if A equals done, then we just break. Okay, so this is a simple grocery app. The logic goes like this. You first create an empty list, and anytime you enter an item, it will keep adding that item to the list. And once everything is done, it's going to print it. Let's run it. And if you type in done, D-O-N-E, then it will stop taking notes, and then it will just print it, okay? So let's run this. Grocery item, cabbage. Okay, and ribeye. Okay, cheddar. What else? Just one more.
Corn.
Huh?
Corn.
Corn. Okay, I like that. Corn. Okay, how do I stop? Done. Okay, good. So it printed everything. Okay, very simple. Yeah. So do you see how the while loop works? It will just keep executing 5 through 8 because this block is indented until it's broke. You tell it to break out of the loop. Yes.
What does the append do? One dot append. What does that do?
See, L is this, right? If you do L dot append, say apple, and you look at L.
So it'll add it onto the list.
Yeah, it'll add to the list. Now, how would you get rid of something? Do you remember how to get rid of the last item? It was pop, L dot pop. So what it does is it deletes the last one and returns that thing. So now it's that.
Did you put a number in? So you did L or one or L dot pop of.
Well, so no. I don't think so. Wait a minute. How do you do? L dot pop. Yeah. So if you do question mark L dot pop without the opening and closing parenthesis, it will tell you what it does, and in here it doesn't say that you can default is last. Okay, index. Okay, right. Okay, I see. Yeah, you're right. You can also pop anything you want. If you want to pop the very first one, you can do L.pop 0 and it'll get rid of the cabbage. Yeah. Now it's gotten rid of the cabbage. Okay, thank you. Yeah. All right, so sometimes if you're not sure of the method, you can do question mark and then type in the method, or you can also do this for the functions that you import. Okay, so here's a challenge. I want you to make a new if statement where if the input is DEL, just del, then it deletes the last item that you added. How do you do that? So, since we're in an if statement, let's say else if a equals what? Equals. What do you put here? del. I want you to say the answers. If you're participating in answering me, you learn. Okay, even if it's wrong. If you don't participate, then you're not going to learn. You might save yourself from embarrassment of your ignores, but you don't get to learn anything. Right? So what do I do here?
Right, pop. You pop the last one.
Yeah, but how do you pop? What are we trying to pop here?
The last one, right?
Yeah, but oh, okay. So you just got here today, so you don't understand the what's called the method. So there's something called a method where it's a function that's tied to a data. So L is a list type of data, and when you have a list, there's a method called pop. So you have to do something.pop. You can't say pop of anything. That's not allowed. You have to say L.pop. Okay? L.pop. All right. Okay, so this actually has an error, but this has a bug, but I want you to be able to figure it out. So let's run it and see what it does. Okay, let's say tea, and then coffee, and pasta sauce. And then you realize, oh, I already have pasta sauce. I don't need it. So what do? del, right? Then it's going to delete it, right? So it's going to delete. And then add something like blueberries. And then carrots. And then I say done. Now there's something that's not pleasant about this result. What is it? Del, well, it did what we asked it to do. It deleted the pasta sauce, but then what happened? It got stored because the next line is you have to append whatever you put in. Okay. So how would you say I don't want to execute this one? How did you fix this problem? Any ideas? No, that's going to break out of the loop, so that's not good. Okay. All right, so there are two ways to do this, okay? Instead of break, you can say ignore the rest of the commands and do continue. So what it will do is it will ignore the rest of the commands and just come back to the very first place of the loop, and it will just repeat, okay? So this is going to fix it. Let me just quickly run it to demonstrate this. So tea, coffee, delete, and then now, what is it? Toast or bread. Okay, and let's say done. Okay, in fact, it worked. The coffee got deleted because you said del, and now you have tea and bread only, right? Here's another way to do it. Another way to do it is you want to append only if none of these are true. Now you have to make sure that you indent so that this part is executed only when it's the else case. So if your input is done, or it will break. If it's del, it's going to get rid of the last item. But if you if it's none of those cases, it will append. Okay, so this will be another way to solve it. Let's run it. Tea, coffee, del, bread, Done. Okay, good. So it works as we thought, right? Okay, so that's a nice introduction to while true. I'll give you some other examples of while later, but there's another thing that I don't like about this, that this looks more like a code, not something that's natural, right? So it would be nice if you can just print these items line by line, right? So how do you do that? And that's when you can use a for loop. So you can do for item in L, print item. And what for does is it takes something that's iterable, okay? For takes something that's iterable, you can iterate, and then goes item by item, fetches that thing, and calls that item, and then prints it, okay? So I'll do for item in L, print item. And just to have some space between the input and the output, we'll just put print \n. Those are the new lines, right? So we're going to put some new lines and do this. So grocery item, apple, orange, strawberry, carrots. No, delete carrots. Add in potatoes. Okay, I think that's it. Done. Okay, so everything got printed. So we've made a grocery app, right? Once again, let's see what happened at this last for. Right now, the list L has these things in there, right? Apple, orange, strawberry, potatoes. And this for says just repeat this command over and over again. Print item is being repeated, but every time it's executed, it does something different because this item fetches each element of the list. So in the first run, item becomes apple. In the second run, item becomes the orange. Third run, item becomes the strawberry. Fourth run, item becomes potatoes, and that's how it prints. Okay. All right, so let me do another demonstration of this. Okay, so let's say A equals to apple, orange, and then people, or something like that, okay? And then for I in A, print quotation, I like to eat not apple, but eat plus, and you want to have this extra space that's going to be important, plus I. Okay. And then let's also import time, just so that we can have time.sleep. So import time. And then it's going to print, and then we're going to do time.sleep. And we'll wait like 5 seconds. Okay. All right, so let's run it. Okay, what's next? I like to eat orange. What's next? Yeah. Right? You see how this for loop works, right? Every time this indented block line 5 and 6 is run, the value of I is different. Why? Because it fetches items from here. Okay? That's how the for loop works. Any questions on the for loop? Is this okay?
So you can just keep adding different things.
Yeah, you can add other things like, oh, the people is too horrible. Let's change it to mice or something, right? Yeah. And then you can put something else like back to oranges. You can do something.
How would you
Yeah.
make it so it goes through the list randomly? Or is it already
Oh, that's nice. Okay, I like that. Okay. But you'll have to wait a little bit. What you can do is you can make a shuffle. Does list have shuffle? Let's see. dir l. I don't think it has shuffle. No, it doesn't have shuffle. All right. There's a random.shuffle. You could do import random. Let's import random and see what it has. So import random, and then dir random. It has shuffle right here. To understand what it does, I fully don't remember what it is, so let's ask it. So question mark, what is random.shuffle? It says shuffle list X in place and returns none. So this is, as I explained earlier today, this is a function where it doesn't return anything. It does its work in place. So when you send in a list, the list gets shuffled. So let's look. L is right now this, and you can say random.shuffle of L, and now the list L has been changed. It's shuffled. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I guess you can do something like so who's going to do dishes for the next four days or something? You guys, like, just four guys are living in the same house and they have to take turns. So this is a nice way to print something. Okay, so let's say Tim, Jeff, Joey, and then Mac, or something like that. And then you do random.shuffle of A, and then I think 5 seconds is too much. Okay, so you can say print dishwashing order. Okay, and then you can time that sleep 1 second, just for dramatic purposes, right? If everything just prints all at once, it's not that fun. So you print it. It says Tim goes first, Mac next, and Joey next, Jeff next. Okay, and you can run this again, and it will give a different order because every time you run it, it will shuffle it. Okay. All right. Yeah, good idea. I like what you suggested. Okay. All right. Now, there's another built-in command in Python called range. Range of, say, 5. And, you know, sometimes executing something when you need it is more conservative in terms of resources than actually making something. If you make a list, it will consume memory because it has to be stored somewhere. Okay, so range is something that can be iterated. This is a range object. It can be iterated, but it doesn't create a list. But if you ask it to convert the range into a list, this is what it does. It creates numbers from 0 until 1 before that number. Okay, So it creates 5 numbers starting from 0. Now, if you want to repeat something, let me just delete all of this. If you want to repeat something over and over, you can use the range. So for I in range of, say, let's not do it here. Let's not do it here. Okay, let's do it here. For I in range of, say, 10, print I. Okay. Now, the difference between this one and the previous one is range 10 is not yet a list. It's an iterable, but it's not a list. Only when you make it into a list, it turns into a list. Yet, this can still be iterated. Every time it goes in, if range goes into the for loop, what happens is that I is just will go through these numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 until 9 because I said 10. Okay, so you get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it will be same as putting a list around the range. These two things will do the exact same thing, except that if you do this, then Python will create a list of numbers from 0 through 9, thereby consuming memory, and also some time will be wasted making that list. So it's a way for Python to save time by making range 10 as an unrealized list from 0 through 9. Does that make sense? It's just a way to save time. But it doesn't hurt to think of range 10 as just list from 0 through 9. It's just not yet residing in the memory. Okay. So if you run this, it's going to print everything from 0 through 9 because it fetches numbers from this list 0 and then 1 and 2 and then 3 and then 4 until it hits the last number, which is 9, and it stops because there is no more in the list. That's what this would do. Is that okay? Yeah. Yes?
Wait, why doesn't it print 10 though?
Oh, because that's the way Python designers made it. So they just made this so that list of range 10 would not include the last one. And different languages have different ways of doing this. I think some older languages like COBOL probably has 1 as the very first item. Yeah. Most languages will start from 0. Yeah. It's just the way that designers do it. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, a little bit of my story. Can you guess when I was born? 19... Okay. Yeah.
You have a son in college, you said?
Yeah.
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 74, 75.
Oh, wow, that's very close. 1973. That's when I was born. So back then, personal computers were a very novel idea, and you had to spend a monthly, entire month's wage to buy a computer. Or maybe not one month, probably 3 or 4 months, or even like a year. Personal computers were there, but it was accessible only to a few. I think the first time I saw a computer was 1983, and Steve Jobs came up with Apple Computer, and that was the first affordable computer, I would say, that was functioning, and it was doing everything that you could do. And I was, so 1983, I was 10 years old. I went to the library. I couldn't afford a computer. It was still too expensive. It was cheaper than before, but it was still too expensive. So I went to the library, and the local library had an Apple computer. And to use that, you had to take 1 hour of class to know how it functions. So I took the class, and the first thing that the lady showed me, it was basically how to load programs. They had something called diskettes, where you had to stick it into the computer, and it'll read the programs and run. It had some games, so I was mostly interested in playing games. But the first time that I saw a computer program was when the lady showed me that there's this thing called coding. You can put codes into the computer and ask it to do. So for example, to print 1 through 100, well, back then there was no Python language, so this was done in another language that's no longer used. It's called BASIC. So it did something like this. It would do for loop, and would go through 1 through 100 and print I, and suddenly it printed 1 through 100 just by typing these two lines. And it was kind of fascinating, but I've never understood how this thing worked. But then after like 3 months of going to the library and just using the Apple computer to play games, I got really bored. So I started to take computer books out and taught myself. And the moment I realized what this was doing, then I started writing codes myself. Okay, so this was more like my first intro to coding, right? But it really took me a long time. I read this over and over again. I couldn't understand. And I guess something that helped me was that what's really happening is this is not what the computer understands. This is like an intermediary language between me and the computer. Computer understands zeros and ones, right? Somebody that designed a language so that if we type in it, then a compiler or interpreter will take that language and convert it to binary code that the computer understands. And the way they designed it, they just said, okay, we'll make something called a for loop, and the for loop would do this. You take a variable and take some iterable here, then this variable will just repeat the indented block over and over again, making the variable take each values in the range. That's how the for loop is designed. And ever since this for loop was invented, I think people started with the while loop. They didn't think about the for loop, but ever since the for loop was invented, every language had it because it made sense. It made programming a lot easier. Okay. All right. So while doing this, I kind of remembered something. Come on, my browser. All right. Okay, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. Okay, so let's go to Bart Simpson. I will not. Right, that one. And what's it? Images. Right, this one. Yeah. Okay, let's look. I will not sell school property. I will not rep in class. What's like a good one? I don't think that's appropriate. Okay. Not breaking up. I'll just repeat this. I will not sell school property. All right. So let's say Bart Simpson is given this task. Okay. Write in computer console, repeat, I will not sell school property 100 times. How do you do it? Well, one way to do it would be to have a print statement, right? Triple quotes so that you can do multi-line, and then you can start typing, right? I will not sell school property. And then you just copy this and Control V 100 times, right? V, yeah. Okay. So that's one way to do it, right? Now, what's a smarter way to do it? Anyone? Yes?
Couldn't you, do the loop, and every time the loop finishes at the end, do +1, and then it's, once it reaches 100, then you do a break?
That will be how you use a while loop. Okay, so that's a good suggestion. So we can use a while loop. So in a while loop, we can do something called a counter. So counter will be 0, okay? And while counter is less than 100, then we're going to print I will not sell school property. Okay, and then once you print it, it will count. So counter will be equal to counter plus 1. You're going to add 1 to the counter, and that's going to be stored in the counter. Okay, so the very first time it's printed, counter will be 0, and once it prints, it will be 1, right? So if it prints 1, it will be printed. Okay, let's just try this with 5 and see if it does do 5 times. Okay. All right, so it does 5 times, right? So what's happening is that it will print 1, and then counter will become 1. It will print twice, counter will become 2. It will print 3 times, and the counter will become 3. But the moment you print it 5 times, now the counter is 5, and it no longer satisfies counter less than 5, right? So it's going to halt printing. Okay, so that's how you use while loop with a condition inside. Okay, now I think you suggested something slightly different, which also makes sense. It would be more complicated. You could do while true, so that it's an infinite loop, but put a if-then statement. If counter is equals to 5, you break. That'll be another way to do it. So it will just keep printing, and if it matures, equals 5, then it's going to break 5 times, right? Okay, but the easiest method would be just to use a for loop. So I'm going to erase all of this. How would you use a for loop? How do you repeat something 100 times? I in range 1, what?
1 through 101.
You can do 1 through 101, or you can just do simply 100. That's because we're not really going to use I. It will just count to 1. It will count from 0 through 99, and 99 is reached, it will stop executing. So print I will not sell school property. Okay. That's clear. Control L, by the way, clears the console. So, and you run it. Now you have I will not sell school property 100 times. All right? Okay. All right. Any questions? Here's another nice one to do. So statement equals to I am the king of the world. So write something that you want to repeat, okay? And then L will be the length of the statement, okay? And then for I in range of L, so you're just going to repeat by the length of the statement, and then print. And what you're going to do is you're going to do statement, open bracket, colon, I. Let's run it. Start it with nothing, I, and there's a space, right? Does this. It didn't give me the period because when you get the length, the range L stops right before it. So I guess to make the range behave nicely, we should do 1 comma L plus 1, so that it does give you the full letter. let's run it again. Yeah. So. Yeah, if you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, you can write something like "I love you," something, something, something. And then it's a nice, cute thing to print, right? Okay. All right, so we have 15 minutes, and I'm going to do something important now. So the major theme for today is to show you this thing called Guess the Number game. This will be your first personal exam, in-person exam. You have to memorize this, and I'll also give you a few variations. So you come into my office or maybe here right after class, and I give you time to type the guess the number game from scratch without looking at anything. If the program runs and meets all the specification, you get at least 8 out of 10. Okay? And then I'll give you like a few variations. If you get that right, then you get full credit. And my goal is to have everyone to get full credit. And it's not hard because you just have to memorize it. Okay. All right. And I think the Guess the Number game is a nice program to memorize because it has all the things about programming. It has the if-then. It also has something called flags. It also has the for loop. Okay, so let's try this. So import random. We also import time so that it can do time.sleep. And what I'm going to do is in the random one, dir random, there's something called randint. Okay, so the randint, I'm going to let's try to do random dot randint. It says, oh, here's the explanation. Randint AB, return random integer in range AB, including both endpoints. So I can do rand 1 through 100. It gives you some random number between 1 through 100. If you run it again, every time you run it, it gives you different numbers, okay? So I'm going to say secret. My secret number will be the random dot randint 1 through 100. Okay. And we'll print the title, put some space, guess the number. Okay. Just like that. And we'll print some, before and after, let's put some \n so that it has some spacings before, after. So \n, \n, \n. Okay. All right, now let's time.sleep. Maybe 1 second, and then print hello, I am thinking of a number between 1 to 100. Okay, and then time.sleep, 1 second, and then print another one. Can you guess in 7 tries? And another time.sleep, 1. Okay. And now we will do a while loop. Okay, but while true needs to stop sometime, so let's have a counter. So counter is going to be 0. Okay, and we're going to say while counter is less than 7, because I need the person who's guessing must be guessing it in 7 tries. Okay, and then we're going to do guess input. What is your guess? Okay. Now the problem is with input is that whatever input you get becomes a string. It's not a number. So you have to convert that into a number. How do you do that? Do you remember? Guess equals to, you want to change string into an integer. What's the command?
INT.
int, very good. Yeah. int of guess. So I can compare, okay? So if guess is less than the secret number, okay, you print your guess is low. Okay. Elif guess is greater than the secret, what should you do? Print your guess is high. Okay, else, what does that mean? If it's neither greater or less.
It's correct.
Huh?
It's correct.
It's correct. Right. So you got it right. Okay. And then we have to make sure the counter goes up. Counter plus equals to 1. Doesn't matter. You could also do counter equals to counter plus 1, but a shorthand is just to say counter plus equals to 1. It just adds 1 to the counter. Okay. Counter plus equal to 1. And then once you're out, you're going to check if the guess is indeed equal to counter. If guess is equal to the counter, no, not guess is equal to the secret, then you print, we're going to use F strings. F, you got it in counter tries. Okay. And I think you need to add 1 or something because counter starts from 0, not 1. So 1, yeah, something like that. Okay. Well, we'll have to debug it if it gives you a different number. Okay. Okay. Else, if it's not the same, then print. Sorry. Better luck next time. Okay, so that's a simple question. And by the way, let's put a time.sleep here as well. I think 1 second is too much, so let's put 0.5 seconds. Okay. So that's going to be, I'm going to save as guess the number. Oop. Guess the number. Save as Python. Okay. Now let's run it. Control L to clear the screen. Let's run it. Guess the number. Can you guess in 7 tries? What is your guess? Okay, give me a number. Let's try it. 45. Guess is low, so we have to go higher. 76. Still low. Okay. 97. I got it right in 3 tries. Oh no. Oh, I forgot. Sorry. I forgot something. I need to stop doing the loop if you get it right. So what should I insert here? Break, yes. Okay. All right, that should be good. Okay, so now let's run it. I might still have to debug this counter plus 1, okay? All right, guess the number. Hello, I'm thinking of a number between 1 through 100. What is your guess? Let's say 50. Guess is high. 20. Guess is low. 35. Guess is low. Okay, 42. Guess is high. Okay. So 39. Okay, we're getting really close. 41. Okay, I got it in 6 tries. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Yeah. So this is right. So if you do this in the personal exam, you will get 8 out of 10 points. And I'll give you some variations next time on this one. Okay. So what you need to do is you should be able to print a title with some time that sleep sprinkled in. You have to be able to count 7 tries. It has to be between 1 through 100. And if you get it right, it has to tell you how many tries you used to get it right. Okay. All right. That's all for today.